Welcome to Canada's podcast. Hi everyone, I'm Phil Bliss, founder and host of Canada's podcast, coming to you from Toronto. Today we're going to meet Alex Simonelli, who's the founder and CEO at Daydream Drinks, Canada's first sparkling water infused with hemp extracts and adaptogens. So Alex, welcome to Canada's podcast. Great to see you. First thing, I've done a little bit of background. Daydream Drinks, which is what you're founded and running. Tell us a little bit more about it and why you started the venture.
Definitely. Thanks, Phil. Daydream was started as a way to bring more calming moments to the world. So I saw the beverage market, and I definitely saw an opportunity, particularly in beverages where most of the older ones crowding the shelves are synthetic, caffeine, chemical, or sugar-filled beverages. And I thought, okay, well, personally, as someone who was drinking beverages almost every single day while working, I wanted something that was plant-based, that had no sugar. I gravitated pretty quickly to La Croix and those kind of beverages, but there was no functional side to it. So, pretty much Daydream was built on the fundamental principle that in the future, people will reach towards more plant-based beverages, better for you alternatives than a caffeine or synthetic. And I'm sure there's still some people that swear by those or love them. There's also a whole group of people that are more health-centric, that we're speaking to as well. So,
but what made you move to the hemp product side of wellness? And as soon as you say hemp, it's, everyone thinks cannabis and CBD. So why? I don't know what the difference is, frankly.
Yeah, the distinction between the two is, hemp's below 0.3% CBD, so it's negligible. So we moved there because of the restrictions on building a CBD drink in Canada. There was a lot of upfront cash burn. I noticed quickly as a young entrepreneur, about 2 years ago when I was starting, that it wasn't really going to be, I wasn't able to do the kind of marketing I wanted to do. Wasn't really going to able to be smooth sailing to launch something, even to launch something and have an MVP, just because of all the licenses needed. So I moved to hemp, and I actually leaned heavier on the adaptogens, which are plant-based herbs that are anchored in the same kind of states that CBD is anchored in: productivity, relaxation, stress reduction. They provide those things. So there were no beverages with them. I found them super interesting. In the States, there's a whole category built out of it now. And in Canada, and we can touch a little bit into this part of my process, but it was really about proving to the market that, these should be part of the functional beverage market, because Canada is normally behind maybe a couple years or so, maybe more, arguably more, I don't know, when it comes to different products and trends. Yeah, that was the decision to go to hemp. And then the customers, and we started getting orders, and the feedback came in, and I decided, okay, that was a great pivot. We're not going to, touch CBD for now. Maybe somewhere down the line, there's a Daydream Plus with some CBD in it. But, that no CBD has also allowed us to kind of penetrate and sell the product in the grocery market across Canada, instead of just the limited number of cannabis stores.
The key thing is, you went to business school, you did this, you did that kind of thing. Why become an entrepreneur? Why not sort of go off and get a good job and work for somebody and stuff like that, instead of taking risk and working 24 hours a day and that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, so the first time I was in school, general business, then I started going to economics and different things. I dropped out. And it was when I went back for entrepreneurship, there's a program where I was able to build this business and get marks for it. That was the only way I was going back to school, because I wasn't really interested in doing stuff if it wasn't my own thing. So, but I guess it's just always been an itch for me that I've had. I've kind of done more entrepreneurship, I think is the word. So in the past, I built a friend's company up. They did multi-million in sales and sold it. And then I was left without a job. So, and I'm only 25 now. So I said, you know what, before too much time passes, I'm going to start something of my own that I'm really passionate about, that I'm going to pour all this time into. And I love building teams. I love connecting with people. Again, especially when it's something I'm passionate for. So, I've entrepreneurship just always just kind of been, for me, the obvious thing. I mean, I know in the classes, they would give all these disclaimers like 90% of entrepreneurs are going to fail. The businesses aren't going to pass like, X amount of revenue or get to the point of a meaningful valuation. And for some reason that never really scared me. It just kind of seemed like a disclaimer on something that I just looked past. So, it's just always just been in my nature.
So lots of people, looking at this and listening, are thinking about going off on their own into their own business. It all seems so easy, but how do you do that? I mean, how do you finance it? How do you actually? What actions do you need? To break out and get things rolling and build your own business. I mean, from your perspective.
Sure. Yes. From my perspective, it's not an extremely glamorous story. So, I sold my condo to finance Daydream. So I moved back in with my parents. I don't complain about that. I'm lucky enough that I had that option to move back in, whereas who knows other people's situations. So It's a grueling road. I don't think that, I think you need to have the mental fortitude for it. And by no means in the world of entrepreneurship am I wildly successful by net worth, but I'm glad to see Daydream, growing as a company now. So it's like those risks I took weren't in vain. And I think that's what any entrepreneur just wants to see is return on their initial investment with their time, money, and so I think it's about being bold. Yes, you need to have soundboards. It's important to have advisors. It's important to test your assumptions before you spend a lot of money. That would be key. You don't want to go and blow your brains out per se. I don't know if that's a little bit of an early way to say it, but
you sold your condo. I get that. But how did you get the money? I asked another couple about 3 episodes ago, and they said you just ask for it, and I thought that was a pretty funny statement.
Hey, who are we asking here, though? Who are we at? You get the money from an investor, or like what?
Yeah, you obviously did that. You sold the condo because you used your own stake to get it rolling. Okay.
Yes, precisely.
But to keep growing, sometimes that isn't enough. Many times it isn't enough. How do you kind of work through that?
So it was a mixture of two things. So firstly, I was lucky enough to have a mentor in the CPG, which he had a food product space called Flourish Pancakes. So his name is Andrew Mayday. He's the founder. We've been friends since we were kids. Okay. I saw him in his journey. I'd hang out around his office when he was, he'd be like, "Don't you have anywhere to go?" I'm like, "No, I actually don't." He's like, "Okay, then you're going to go wrap these pallets for me in the warehouse." So I put in some sweat equity to get some coaching with my friend. And I learned really quickly that cash flow was the most important thing to be managing. And I learned really quickly the kind of margins and the kind of way you had to build a business to get into CPG. So the dollars that I invested from selling my condo went a little bit further because I backed them with some education, meaning we were actually profitable our first year while growing. So I didn't lose money starting the business the first year. I lost the initial investment, but the business itself was profitable. It could have easily been not if I wanted to just grow it really quickly, but I wanted to show profitability for investors. And then the second stage to that was raising money from investors as kind of that jet fuel to start moving, the machine a little bit quicker. And then, you have some more money. And again, it's the discussion maybe internally between you and investors if you want to continue showing that profit if you can. But a lot of companies are venture backed and they burn a lot of money and they constantly need money on a runway, they call it. And so I think it's refreshing for some investors to be like, "Oh, you started this with your own money and you can keep growing it profitably. Well, but you could grow it quicker if we raise more, then fine, we get that. But if you didn't have us, you could still grow it profitably." So that was kind of my approach. And I only knew how to structure the business, with the protect my margins, have enough for margins for an attractive business in the grocery space with these wholesalers and traditional grocers, have enough for my OPEX and my cost of goods and the profit. So I only knew that because I had a mentor or someone I can hang around and learn from. So that's so it was a mix of raising money and the structure.
Okay, so you don't, so because it's not a cannabis product, you sell across Canada. Are you looking further afield? I mean, is sort of the big world on the horizon for you?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think that once we've saturated and grown and really, have our foothold in across Canada, because born and raised, I really want this product to be a Canadian product more than anything. And we're on our way there. Now we're launching across all the Loblaws and stuff. And I think this is, we had the story that we started with the first 2 years, had the unique brand, unique ingredients in that story. And now we're going to be building the data. I think those two things together are going to enable us to look geographically for expansion, whether that's to the south of the US or elsewhere, Europe, Asia. I think that, the team is super excited. We've talked about this kind of stuff. The investors have mentioned it, advisors have mentioned it. So I think we have an iconic brand. Daydream's super iconic. The design is the visual identity. It can cut through any language barriers. It's a cool brand, unique ingredient set, like I said. So I want to bring it across the globe. Now, this is obviously really far away. So, but yeah, it does fire me up to talk about that, the future possibilities of that.
Yeah, I mean, you said you had a mentor, which is very interesting. How important is that to someone building their business? I mean,
yeah, I think that's an awesome question. So I'll put it this way, it never really loses its importance. So whether, I had that first mentor who was my friend earlier on, that placeholder evolves over time. Now I have, advisors who've come on as investors. We just got an investment from Eat Beyond, and they brought on a great advisor for us, Alan Linder, who has 25 years in Unify. We have Jorn, a 14-year executive from AB and Bev, Tony Cohen, early investor in Tequila, Trombone, Flow Water, and he's manager in the hospitality business. So I've been constantly building from my friend Andrew, and who's still technically, I talk to him every week, so he didn't go anywhere. But that need, you can't ever satiate that need, because you need to have advisors and soundboards. Ideally, the way we've structured it is our investors are also advisors. Yeah. Then they have that interest as well in the company.
Thinking about the advisors, thinking about sitting on a couple of advisory boards as well. What's the best piece of advice you've been given that you keep on using?
Oh, that's tough. Because so much of the advice they give me is very specific to today's issue or whatever
I get
we're dealing with.
Maybe there isn't something, but sometimes, we carry something around with us and say, oh, I better do it this way.
Yeah. I think that some of the things that earlier on were ingrained into me is just to really, stand up for the ideals that you have and for your business. I think people want to be more agreeable as often, but if you don't ask, you'll never know, kind of thing. Yeah. So it's important to not be agreeable all the time with your own ideals. Mm-hmm. And I saw entrepreneurs doing that, and I realized early on, and reading some books as well, that unagreeableness is actually one of the top 5 characteristics of most successful entrepreneurs. So I saw early on, even with Andrew that I was mentioning, the need to ask questions, to push back on things, to really to have the good fight for your ideals. I don't think any investor looks at that as, look at this guy, he's being a hassle. They look at it like, look how he's fighting for his business and how he's going to fight to defend whatever, the business, the valuation, whatever it happens to be, when I invest as well. So it's an attractive characteristic to have to a certain extent. But yeah, I think that's one of the major things I learned.
You think like entrepreneurs are a bit weird? Do you think we're wired differently?
Probably.
Look at your friends that aren't entrepreneurs and think of yourself. I mean, is there something different?
Yeah, so a partner of mine in the business, since like early in the business, his name's Chris. Very strategic, numbers oriented, quantitative. Whereas I'm more qualitative. We make a great team, And he actually said, hanging around with you, I got more risk adverse. Like, I noticed myself like thinking of things a little bit differently. So I think maybe entrepreneurs are hardwired to take a bit more risk. We also need people like him to tether us down sometimes, because there are times when he tells me something and I just go, you know what, I'm going to go based off this overarching strategy we have now. And I'm not going to, so I've also sort of changed, right? Because being too risky, could be damaging as well for the business. But yeah, I think entrepreneurs inherently have that mentality of, well, they must, right? Obviously, of gambling, because there's so much of that gamble going on in the early days.
And with that in mind, what job wouldn't you like to do?
What job? Well, I do a lot of everything in the business. I really enjoy the sales, the leadership aspect. I do a lot of the numbers stuff, but I don't think I would want to do something where I'm trapped too much looking at numbers all the time. I like to make things happen in the real world and then review those, how those actions quantify through in numbers and to better understand the impacts of what I'm doing. But I like to go right back out there. So I'm very active. COVID has obviously made that the last years all virtual for me, whereas I love to drive around, travel, take meetings, go meet people, but go to stores, do demos. So what I wouldn't want to be trapped behind too many numbers all the time without the real life aspect of it.
What's your favorite word, or phrase or whatever that you like to use, and what word do you hate?
Favorite phrase that I would like to
phrase that you like to use that's kind of, this is who I am.
I would say that strict with the vision, flexible with the details. That's something that we say a lot. Our ethos is also brand over everything. In the company, we have a couple other things, we kind of like our values that we write down. I think that having integrity is extremely important, but that's not per se a sentence or something that I like to.
No, that's the word. Integrity is a good word.
Integrity is extremely important. I think that the main thing that the word I would stay away. I guess you said, what is the word you hate hearing? Was the second part of the question? Maybe it's not so much a word. It's definitely excuses. I hate hearing the word no, but we all get faced with that, and you transform that into not now, but later. And I'd say that's.
So I mean,
our answer.
Obviously, you're running very hard. How do you manage to find a balance? Workload and relaxation. How do you manage to do that? Is there a sort of good process that you need to follow to do that?
Yeah, I'm a little bit everywhere. I try to set these better schedules for myself. It's like, yes, at this time I'm going to put everything away, and then it never happens. So I'm pretty much tethered to my phone, like always doing work. The weekends I take maybe Sunday off sometimes. Most of the time I'm still working. I am a really big believer in that whole, like, if you work X amount more, like 3 times more than your competition, you're getting what they're getting done in 12 months and, in 4, right? So I am a big believer in that. In the earlier days now, I could take a little bit of time to cool off so I don't burn out, and I get to kind of leverage that with the help of my team. So that's great. Still a very small team, still not where we want to be yet in the larger grand scheme of things, right? So a lot of work to do scaling up these stores. Like, we're going to be in about 1,000 stores. So it's pretty much like there's just a ton of stuff to do, especially now with the Loblaws launch I was mentioning to you off recording. But that is pretty much, I can elude myself and say, yeah, you deserve time off. But the reality is there's too much to do. So it's just an illusion. I would be lying to myself to take time off. I really just take some time when I feel like I'm burning out, and I switch gears. But I have a very active mind, so I end up just filling that time with other stuff like working out or reading,
Yeah.
So I don't really just kind of I don't shut off. That to me isn't really relaxing. Feels kind of like wrong to totally shut off.
Are you a morning or a night person?
I'm a night person.
So you get most of your good ideas after 7 o'clock in the evening.
Yes. I write like a madman at night. I get all my emails. I send them. If you get an email from me at 8 o'clock on the nose, it's just the auto schedule send time that Google gave me. My team is like, dude, I'm getting emails from you at like 12, 1 in the morning. And my team schedules, like they love, and Chris, who I mentioned earlier, my partner, he wakes up, business partner wakes up at 6, gets my emails from 1 in the morning and answers all of them while I'm still sleeping. So it's like, but and then like during the afternoons and stuff, I'm still working too. So that's normally when I schedule my in-person video, not in-person, video meetings right now.
So what inspires you? What are the top 3 things that that inspire you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there may not be 3, maybe 1, maybe 2, whatever. I'm just throwing a number out.
It does, yeah. When I see somebody going after their ideal situation in life, their ideal, like I was reading recently, I'm still reading a book from Ayn Rand called The Fountainhead. Mm-hmm. She talks about the, man striving for his, or her ideals in life. That would motivate that we are kind of the masters of our own fate. And although sometimes circumstances for people's lives are completely different than other people's, there's a certain innate drive that all of us have at some point for something we want to see and do in our life. It's not for everyone. It's not entrepreneurship, right? It's not starting. Looks crazy to some people, like you said, or just not attractive. They just want X or Y. And I would say, awesome. So if you know what that thing is, go after it. That inspires me to, want to go after that ideal situation for my own life, for my business. So
you mentioned the book, audiobook, whatever, at least from my perspective, from many of the people that I talk to, books are important. They're where they get, some of their deeper ideas from. What book would you recommend to somebody out there that sort of maybe had, again, you're carrying that stuff around in your head?
Yeah, one I finished recently that an investor of mine gave me, and I'm really grateful for that, is The Big Finish. Mm-hmm. That book, I think for someone who's in the stage, maybe not right in the startup stage,
right,
who's actually in the stage of the business, it's really great. It talks about kind of the perils / modes of thinking that you should be in when looking to scale up your business, and what's important, and eventually the sale, how the sale of your business affects yourself mentally. Some people are left still feeling a longing for something because so much of their personality was grown through developing this business, or the connections they made, or their soul is still in it. But it also talks about the things to look out for when building your business and selling the business. And it's just an all around great read. It gives a lot of real life examples, which is nice. So you get all these different perspectives from real businesses that you may have actually even heard of. Like talk about Ben and Jerry's at one point, and like Stony Creek yogurt that was selling to Danone. So it's like real products that you may know. Mm-hmm. It's a really great book. And I as I mentioned, I'm reading that Ayn Rand book. I have not even got a dent in it. The thing's a kilogram, like, but it's awesome. And I have heard a lot about her philosophy before. For me, this is my first time really getting into her philosophy, so I don't really want to. I'm probably not qualified to talk too much about it, but I am a really big philosophy reader as well. So not just fiction. I'm a big nonfiction philosophy reader. That's where I get insight, and it kind of feels like when I read something that feels like, okay, that resonates to me because I'm going through it, that I don't feel so alone anymore. I feel like now I have an even stronger purpose because there's somebody writing about this. unique situation or emotion that I'm feeling, or this drive that I'm feeling. So I definitely like to read more philosophy that's around striving for things versus just general, philosophy.
What are the top 2 or 3 things on what I would say your inspired life list? Those things that you really you cherish, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Travel for me would be a big one. I love to travel. I'm also a huge believer that, for me personally, once I do a lot of traveling, I usually am excited to go home. So I did this stint of traveling 2 years ago, in between when I wasn't working on anything. Mm-hmm. So this was right before Daydream. I lived in Europe, visited Italy, Sardinia, and lived in Berlin for about 3 months in Germany. And by the end of I wanted to go home so bad, because I really felt like I need to start something. Like, I had all these things pent up in me. It was like, this is great, the vagabond lifestyle, but it's also, I get so much fulfillment from building something, building, the business. So I think the other thing would be just, financial. I think everyone's striving for a level of financial independence to, be in a place where you can just do the things that you want to do in the business, not necessarily, you've done well in business and life. And so you can pursue ideas, or I would love to, help entrepreneurs when I'm older, right? And be in a place like the people who helped me. That would be awesome, right? Like, so these are the things that keep me going in the background, right?
It's really been an interesting session. I really enjoyed it, Alex. How can people get a hold of you if they've got some questions? Just which is the best way for them to connect, basically?
Yeah. You can reach out to us on Instagram. So Daydream is @Daydream. You can shoot me an email. Pretty much check the general line. So it's hi@drinkdaydream.com. Those would be the best ways. You can check us out online as well at www.drinkdaydream.com. That's, we do free shipping across all of Canada. So if people wanted to give the waters a sip and a sample, they can do that we have a pretty sweet discount going on pretty much most of the time, and plus the free shipping. It's the best way to get a sample pack is probably through the website. Okay. And there's also a store locator on there, so people can see if it's around them in stores and stuff, in case it's like right beside them and they don't want to wait for shipping. But yeah, that would be the best way. If you want to directly get a hold of me, just shoot an email to that address, and I usually check all of them. So
okay. Well, thanks for coming on Canada's podcast. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Phil. This has been truly an honor, and I appreciate it. Great questions, and really, I had a great time talking with you.